Okay, everyone, we're live.
All right, we ready?
We are ready.
All right, welcome, mic check 1, 2. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today for our last day of National Home Ownership Month. This is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. We're gonna have a very powerful and dynamic panel that includes some of the most influential and powerful leaders in real estate, mortgage lending, and community development. This nation has a very long and troubled history of discrimination in real estate and in mortgage lending. And so today we'll have a dynamic panel and we'll move along. So first, I'd like to bring up Bishop Craig Worsham, the Faith Ambassador for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. You have to unmute yourself, Bishop Worsham.
Lord God, in Jesus' name, for this day, we give you thanks for these that are represented on this call that will share. We thank you for them and the insight they will give us. The soul of our nation has been sick from the days of slavery through the moments of the civil rights movement, segregation, and now this new form of slavery that we know as discrimination. Lord, today give us strategy, give us tenacity and the courage to holistically and aggressively fight to tear down the walls of systemic racism, which has birthed systemic discrimination, particularly in our context of our discussion of home ownership. You will give us the fortitude, you will give us the strength, you will give us the strategy, and together we will win. In your name, amen.
Amen, amen. We have a very robust agenda today, so we're going to keep it moving. Thank you, Bishop Worsham. Your message, as always, is right on time. Next, I'd like to have an introduction of our 31st president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, Mr. Donnell Williams from the great state of New Jersey, owner of Destiny Realty headquartered in Morristown, New Jersey, with a branch office in Newark, serves as the 31st president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, is one of the largest African-American independently owned real estate brokerages in the state of New Jersey, a longtime member of the association, has been actively involved in the trade association's effort to promote the meaningful exchange of ideas about the real estate business and how to best serve his clientele. He has been very successful with what he calls and we call the NAREB 8, which is helping to take the association to the next level. Without further ado, Mr. Donnell Williams.
Greetings and thank you, Mr. Thompson. I truly appreciate that. I'd like to extend my greetings to all of the realtists on this site and all of the realtists and friends that are on the live social media platform. I am excited about this panel today, and I'd like to thank my partners and sponsors of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers who have joined us today. I understand that, and we understand that these are turbulent, strange, and different and challenging times, but NAREB is here and up for the challenge. Please, I encourage you all to stay safe, be safe, wash your hands, and wear your mask. Also read Realtist Nation, because we will be in front of this and we will thrive. Realtist Nation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, thank you. So we're going to get right into it. We have a very power-packed panel, and I'm going to do some quick introductions of folks. I already gave you the bio of of President Williams. But before I'll read the quick bios of these folks, and then I'm going to say a couple other quick things. First is Tuwana Black is a nationally recognized thought leader known for influencing, inspiring, and equipping a cross-sector leaders to transform a personal conviction for equality into action that produce equitable and thriving communities. For 20 years, she has led cross-sector collaboratives to help triple bottom line diversity and inclusion strategies and development and economic revitalization. You can see her on CNN and a number of other programs. She's leading a team of people who equip leaders and institutions throughout the Minneapolis-St. Paul region with the knowledge and tools and resources needed to dismantle institutional racism and bias. Tuwana is a nonprofit senior fellow of the Brookings Institution Metropolitan Policy Program. She has a bachelor's of public administration degree from Washburn University. She was selected as a partner of the Twin Cities cohort for the Narco Harvard Business School Young American Leaders Program. Welcome, 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 Ms. Tuwana, for all that you do. Next, we will go to our next leader on here is Gesing. Gesing Gesing. He is the CEO of and serves as the CEO of Exp Realty from May 2016 until August 2018. Is president from, and then became president of EXP from 2013 till May 2016. During this time, EXP established itself as one of the fastest growing real estate brokerages brands in the history of the industry and the largest by geography in North America. Gesing returned to the role of CEO on October 24th, 2019. Gesing has been leading an effort in his company to promote diversity and inclusion. And we know that's not easy in real estate, but we thank Gesing as the CEO for letting people know that it starts at the top. Next is Doyle Mitchell. B. Doyle Mitchell Jr., President and CEO of Industrial Bank, leads the largest minority-owned commercial bank in the Washington metropolitan area, the fourth largest Black bank-owned and financial institution in the country, recognized in Black Enterprise's BE 100's 2019 list. Mr. Mitchell is the third generation president of Industrial Bank, praise the Lord, which was founded by his grandfather, Jesse H. Mitchell, in 1934. After receiving his bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, he began a full-time career at Industrial. He was elected to the board of directors in 1990 and succeeded his father as president in 1993. He believes industrial bankers remain strong because of his mission to promote the financial economic empowerment of its diverse communities. And I want to thank him for helping so many hundreds of businesses get access to the Paycheck Protection Program. Steve O'Connor is Senior Vice President for Affordable Housing Initiatives at the Mortgage Bankers Association. He manages MBA's effort to support the affordable housing policy and business objectives of its members. He's also responsible for outreach to industry groups, consumer organizations, and other key stakeholders. He is a regular guest speaker on industry issues. Steve serves on a number of advisory boards as well. And in addition to that, he previously worked in government affairs for the National Association of Realtors and Freddie Mac. He also worked for Skyline Financial Services, and he has a master's degree in political science from American University. And I believe I got everyone. We already know Mr. Williams. All right, so we're going to get right into it. We did all the formalities. As you can see, we have some very highly credentialed people. And so what I'm going to do is I wanted to set quickly the backdrop, and then we're going to go right into our introduction, our opening remarks from our panelists. I want to just put this quick backdrop together that the nation has a very long and troubled history of discrimination in real estate and mortgage lending. dating even prior, during slavery and after slavery. There's always been this hard time for African Americans as relates to land ownership and with the access to mortgage lending. When the U.S. government created Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and also FHA, we all know that they did not provide loans to Black people or provided very limited for 35 years. That was the law of the land. We also know that today, less than 4% of mortgages from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac go to Black borrowers. We also know that none of the top 20 mortgage lenders or banks have a Black CEO in the country. We also know that Black people with similar credit profiles and debt to income ratios are often charged more for mortgages than their similarly situated white borrowers for a home loan. We know that the slums of America, the suburbs of America, and the racial gap in home ownership in the United States of America was created by and has been sustained by local, state, and federal governments. So today we will talk about, from some dynamic individuals, how do we move forward? How do we combat racism and discrimination in the industry? So first we're going to go, our first speaker, we will go to Doyle Mitchell, CEO and President of Industrial Bank. Mr. Mitchell, welcome.
Welcome, and thank you, Antoine, for having me on this distinguished panel, and to you, President, Mr. Williams, also appreciate the invite to be on this panel and address your audience. Industrial Bank's been around for 85 years now, and we have been making loans in our community since 1934, mortgage loans since 1934, and we still continue to do that today. We have programs that allow first-time home buyers to access mortgage lending, and also first-time home buyer programs where they can get technical assistance and down payment and closing money. Sometimes we're able to put together several programs so that first-time home buyers can access funds from many different sources. And so we are looking to ways to fully digitize the process. We're excited about that. That should be rolled out this summer, and so that we can do mortgage lending much more efficiently, and do it through your iPad, your phone, and your laptop. We also last year purchased a bank in Newark, New Jersey, and since they were not allowed to do any lending for the last couple of years of their existence, we are standing up not only the commercial platform for lending, but we are standing up as we speak the residential part of their lending activities. And we're excited about making loans very shortly up there in Newark and in Harlem, New York.
Thank you, thank you. Well, we're going to get into it because you know you've had a lot of titles. I did mention that you used to be you're the past chair of the National Bankers Association. So
Yeah.
you know you've testified on Capitol Hill a lot. So we'll come back to you in a minute.
Great,
Next, we're going to go to Gesing. Gesing is CEO of Exp Realty. Very big job. Gesing, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Antoine. It really is an honor to be here. And just a little bit of context, I guess. Exp Realty today, we've got north of 30,000 agents across all 50 states, much of Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And I've had the privilege of being part of the company since 2010, back when we had fewer than 200 agents. And you know, when you're small, it's very easy to sort of put your flag in the ground and say, this is what we stand for. These are our values, and you know it because you're living it and you're feeling it. And as we've gotten bigger, we've had to be a bit more deliberate to make sure that we're living up to what it is that we believe in. And so I will say, as a company, I think we really do a pretty good job of celebrating Black culture. And from a training standpoint, we are a bit unique in the sense that we're not a franchise company. So in a sense, agents are at their local level on the ground, but as a company, we are everywhere. And So we have state managing brokers, and those state managing brokers in many cases are certified to do continuing education with a focus on fair housing. So we certainly discuss how to avoid practices such as steering in our state meetings. We are right now looking into how we might have all of our brokers participate in the At Home with Diversity program that NAR offers. One of the things that we also do is we don't have physical offices as a company. And so we all get together, socialize, learn from and share with each other using our campus. And our campus is an avatar-based environment with classrooms and staff rooms and 70 hours of education each week, a soccer field, speedboat. So the nice thing about that, and I bring it up only because if you look historically at some of the big firms, oftentimes, particularly in the franchise model, they're setting up offices in largely white neighborhoods. And we're not married to any particular physical location, which means that we have agents that are representing all neighborhoods, and our office is equally accessible to every single person. Also very proud to say that we took a public-facing stance against racism and in support of Black Lives Matter, and also proud to be one of the founding members of our own Black EXP network, which we started back in 2018. Today, we've got 1,750 or so agents and staff who are members of that, and the whole focus is on initiatives that will further collaboration and networking with and among Black agents nationwide.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. We'll have a lot of good questions for you as well. Next, we'll go to Steve O'Connor.
Antoine, thank you. And it's a privilege to be here with my distinguished panelists, and you've been a great partner. MBA launched last June a commitment to affordable housing, a strategic initiative. I'm a 34-year veteran of the association. I was asked to lead it. And if you go back and look at the press release we put out last June, 1 year ago, we explicitly stated it's one of our goals, minority home ownership, recognizing it's been a longstanding problem for our society and our industry, and we haven't been making the sort of headroad we need to make. If you look at the changing demographics of our country, millennials, the most diverse cohort in US history, is 44% minority. 70% of households that will be formed by the year 2025 are minority. By the year 2045, we're going to be a majority minority country. So if we can't figure out collectively as a society and as an industry how to serve minorities, we're going to have a much smaller market, and we're going to have a dysfunctional market. And so we decided to do something about that last June, and we'll be talking about some of the things MBA is doing. And we've been partnering very closely with NAREB, and Antoine and I chair the National Housing Conference Black Homeownership Task Force. We've been working together on that since last year. And NAREB is a great partner in an initiative that we've launched in Memphis, Tennessee, focused on minority home ownership. So I look forward to talking about that and participating in this session with my other panelists. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Tuwana Black, who's on the front lines in Minneapolis, right where George Floyd was killed, an unarmed Black man. Tuwana.
Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to join you this afternoon. So our framework here at the Center for Economic Inclusion really centers on being able to dismantle systemic racism throughout our region and address the disparities and inequities that you referenced at the beginning of the panel by really focusing on the work of the public and private sector and equipping those institutions to do the work inside their organizations that's needed to be able to right the wrongs of both the past and the current still bias and discrimination that we see occurring. And we focus in three really interdependent areas that I would elevate for us. The first is really in looking at the mortgage industry and helping banks and other lending institutions establish transparent, racially equitable and inclusive goals, and then monitor those goals as it relates to home mortgage approvals and seeing that ownership rate increase. and in particular, focusing on middle income African Americans. And as we look at our own market and markets across the country, we often see that the denial rate doesn't really respond to what we should expect it to see when we look at both the income levels and the credit score levels of African Americans. We know that something else is in the water when we look at those denial rates, and that we need to be able to address that with really transparent goal setting and then monitoring those changes that are taking place in the industry in partnership with community. The second then is partnering with employers to ensure that we have really racially responsive incentives and goals taking place inside the workplace. So it's one thing to say we need to increase the incomes. We do. We need to increase employment rates, but we also need racially responsive wages and benefits. And in the same way that we incentivize folks to move across country and take jobs, and we incentivize purchasing a home for folks when they relocate, we can do the same thing if we're intentional about increasing home ownership rates among African Americans by having specific benefits and tools to incentivize those growth rates, knowing that that will start to right the wrongs of wealth extraction that's taken place inside the African American community. So we partner with employers to think about benefits that can lead to greater wealth, and knowing this isn't a framework for handouts. This is a framework for growing our regional economies. And that's the framework with which we need to look at those types of benefits. And the last one is looking at public policy and being able to work with both our state policymakers and local and regional officials to be able to examine how we value Black neighborhoods. And my colleague at Brookings is an expert at this, Dr. Andre Perry, who's recently written and released a book on Know Your Price, on the devaluation of Black neighborhoods, Black housing, and Black businesses, where we have started to, over much time, really not started, really back to our history, devalue Black assets, and houses that would be valued very well if they were in white neighborhoods have been undervalued because we have chosen to live together. And so we need to work with our cities and counties and state governments to make sure that we're properly valuing those assets, not over exaggerating quickly such that we price our communities and our residents out, but making sure that we're properly valuing those assets so that our communities can grow wealth. And as homes are purchased, our communities build assets enough to be able to continue to pass those down and ultimately grow our ultimate communities and neighborhoods.
Tuwana, you raised a great point about employer assisted down payment. We need to really grab that by the horn and get the different chambers of commerce. We currently work with the Black Chamber, but I think all the chambers of commerce can help lead that effort with us to a lot of employer-based down payment assistance programs are underutilized. Boy, and I tell you, our realtors from all across the country would love to work hand in hand with some employers that got money they can't get rid of for a down payment. We'll come back. We're going to come back to you shortly. Donnell Williams, 31st president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Mr. Williams.
Again, good day to all. And the National Association of Real Estate Brokers is the oldest African-American real estate trade association in the country. We are the voice. I need my panelists and all the folks out there in social media land to understand that we are the voice of Black real estate. We are here as the trusted advisors for our community. We look forward to developing plans and strategies and initiatives to impact Black lives across the country. So we are here. We have a list of programs. We have a list of policies we like to see implemented. And we like to work with each and every one of you and all of you watching. So I thank you all. Mr. Mitchell, you're right here in my backyard now. So I'd like to see you soon. Miss Black, I saw you, I think it was Don Lemons or Reed show, and I said, we have to have her. So I went to, wanted to make that connection. We are here, we're excited about the possibilities. When I say we, I mean my Realtist organization, my Realtist family, because we are ready to make an impact. No, we may not be out in the streets protesting, but we choose to protest economically. And that is, we firmly believe that he who owns the land makes the law. So we need to change that structure and get this thing together. And we're looking for partners to help us. So I thank you all for being on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And we're going to weave in during this conversation some of the policy priorities and some of the programs that the association is advocating for. And we'll give Mr. Williams a chance to talk about some of those in a couple seconds. The first question is in 2019, Newsday, a newspaper in Long Island, New York, did a 2-year investigation, and it caught on camera white agents blatantly discriminating against Black home buyers, steering them into neighborhoods below their economic profile. One agent even required a Black home buyer to provide a copy of their income taxes before they could see the home. Jason, I'd like to give you the opportunity. What is your company and organization doing to combat this type of discrimination? And I'll come back with Mr. Williams as the leader of NAREB to talk about our history of fighting for fair housing, some of the things that the association did to respond to that crisis. So Jason, I know that you've taken a stand, but what's your thoughts on that situation?
Well, a couple of things. The first is that we've long been having the conversation on diversity inclusion. We haven't had to be reactive. You know, it's just head scratching to me that you know, we're still confronting this and we're still asking questions about equality. I can tell you that we have been very swift in taking action against some of our agents who were part of the organization, but not part of the culture, not part of the family. And we've removed them because of comments that they've made and views that they clearly hold, which run counter to everything that we believe in. The other thing is that we've really put together, I think, a business model that you know, Tawanna was speaking about economic opportunity and you know, but I'll come back to this. But I think our business model really provides opportunities for generational wealth and some other things. But out in the field, education and conversation to me is the name of the game, and so that's why we've taken steps like you know, working through with NAR and programs, and it's something that's at our core. We've launched a cultural integrity group in response to some of the dialogue and the comments and conversations around current events of late. We've got our One EXP initiative as well, which celebrates diversity and inclusion across all categories of protected classes. And so it's something that's been in our core for quite some time, but any action, any report, any commentary reflective of intolerance or reflective of disparate treatment towards particular individuals on the basis of race or any other characteristic is something that we have zero tolerance for.
All right, Mr. Williams, I know you helped pen a letter to the governor of the state of New York and some others. And how'd you feel about the article? And 2, what can we do to continue to fight situations like this from happening?
Well, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers has always been in the fight. We are the true first association for fair housing. So we've always been there. Some things we fought for just recently, for those of you that may be a little younger, the First Look program did not come about because the GSEs and the bank said, oh, let's give everybody a fair shot at this house. That's not how it came about. We were at the table negotiating and asking for the first 20 days that investors hold off for the first 20 days. We are at the table now negotiating loan level price adjustments, trying to get that done. We're at the table now talking about equality with HUD Section 184. It is gaining traction right now. We're at the table asking for all of these things that I've asked for in my press release on June 2nd, and we're making traction. People are calling now asking, how can we help with HUD Section 184? We're no longer looking for that. We're looking with HUD Section 184. It says Native Americans. It's a Native American housing program. We're looking for our own African American housing program. We have to move forward. Favorable rates, the lower down payment, things like that. Okay, we need this. This is the time to bring it to the table. It's been talked about for decades, but now it's time to move.
Great comments. There is a need for more diversity in the mortgage and real estate industries. what are the steps that you are taking or your organization is taking to increase the number of Black people as senior executives, senior loan officers, and on corporate boards of directors? I'd like to give Tuwana Black and also Steve and Doyle Mitchell, if you all can just kind of respond to that with 1 minute answer, please. We'll go to ladies first. Tuwana, I know that's right up your alley. What we got to do to get more African Americans in these senior executive positions? I just mentioned earlier that less than none of the top mortgage lenders have Black CEOs.
Absolutely. I think the first is to acknowledge that and to be able to know those facts and be able to call that out and to acknowledge that that's not inconsistent with the private sector as a whole. And so we need to be able to call that out and acknowledge it and then establish the goals and hold the industry accountable for moving that expertise up the chain. It's not that we don't have people who have the talent and expertise, to your point, and the point of this very gathering, the expertise exists. And so we need to see that expertise elevated. And that's the approach that we're taking. I think the fact that we made this connection here with myself and our organization and yours comes about through the accountability that we're driving in our region. And I'm seeing notes in the chat now from organizations like ours who are in other markets, who are driving accountability, who know folks on the ground, who often get kind of elevated through banks and other institutions, but then hit that plateau. And so I think it behooves all of us to be partnering together and driving accountability so that folks don't hit that director level or even VP level plateau, but continue to move up the ranks, but also such that there is board representation. And I know we have several boards who are starting to see that diversity in the ranks continue to change, but it also behooves us to have partnerships. So representation isn't enough either if representation doesn't translate into the goals, changing into goals, but also success. So leveraging those seats once we have them, being sure that we're working connection in networks, right? So that we actually see the numbers change once we have the seat at the table.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll go to Steve. I know your Mortgage Bankers has a big program around diversity and inclusion. You want to talk about some of the things that that committee is doing and what you all are trying to do with the industry as a whole?
Sure, absolutely. And Antoine, you're part of that committee, and we appreciate your participation. So we have a robust diversity and inclusion effort. We have a diversity and inclusion resource center. We have a diversity and inclusion committee, which is chaired by our chair-elect, currently Susan Stewart, and it has a cross-section of our membership and industry professionals such as Antoine that give us advice and input. But we have a number of initiatives. We have diversity and inclusion awards that we give to our members for being innovative on diversity, both on the residential side and on the multifamily commercial side. We have a Path to Diversity scholarship program where we provide scholarship funds for minorities in our industry to advance their careers through education programs or to attend certain events at a deep discount on us to continue their continuing education obligations. And we engaged with Home for USA 3 years ago to establish the Center for Financial Engagement, which partners with 7 HBCUs, and some of our other lender members were part of that initiative when we launched it. We're looking to potentially expand that to 14 HBCUs, where we go out and educate students about opportunities for home ownership, but as importantly about opportunities for careers in the mortgage industry. So it's a multifaceted effort.
Thank you. We're gonna go to Doyle Mitchell, then we'll go to our next question.
Well, Antoine, you know, Industrial Bank is a Black-owned bank, and so we've already got diversity of the kind that you're looking for at all levels. But I would say that other mortgage lenders, larger mortgage lenders, probably need to have diversity at all levels. If a loan officer is encountering a potential buyer who is African American, one of the best ways is to have an African American loan officer right at those levels. So you don't encounter Blacks riding around with anyone who is actually looking for tax returns before they show them a house or is requesting tax returns before they show them a house. So you need to hire African American loan officers to begin with. But once that loan officer brings in a client or a potential client, you've got to have diversity all up the line so that those applications don't get rejected. And you have to have African Americans and diversity at the top so that they can push policy down.
Great points. Great points. I want to go to the next question, and we're going to go take some questions from the chat box, and we'll swing back around. The next one is I'm going to go to Mr. Williams first, and then we're going to bounce around. I'd like to get each of you one minute on this question, because it's really important, because we're taking a lot of notes. Mr. Williams, please quickly identify 2 policies that you believe that Congress should pass to increase Black home ownership. And there were 2 things that Congress could do this summer that can increase Black home ownership. Each of you, please identify what those 2 would be. Thank you. Mr. Williams.
I'm sorry, if I had to pick 2, I would go with the a similar program to the HUD Section 184. That's my bone. I'm not going to drop it. I'm going to hold on to it. And then I would go with the American Dream Down Payment Savings Program. I would, I strongly feel that those 2 would have an impact quickly. So those are the 2 I would go to. I believe they're sponsored by Meeks or Beatty.
Yep, Meeks and Doug Jones. Yep, thank you. Tuwana?
Same question.
Yes.
Can you phrase that again for me, please?
Yeah, if there were 2 things that you could get Congress to pass that would increase Black home ownership, what would those be?
You know, I think I would echo the incentives that my colleagues have mentioned thus far, but I also think reparations have to occur.
All right, reparations. I like that. All right, next we're going to go to Steve O'Connor.
Sure. So I think it's important to do things that are impactful now. I think the things that were mentioned earlier are significant, but if you look at the last time we had an economic setback, you know, it's taken a long time for the minority community to recover. So 2 things I would single out is what we call effectively the Vargas Act, preserving access to credit for home buyers. It's passed the House. We need to get across the finish line to Senate. Still with price adjustments and other penalties for loans that are in forbearance after the loan closed but haven't been insured or delivered into the secondary market. And it's particularly hurting minorities. And then relief for renters right now and mortgage holders, homeowners who are under duress because of the pandemic. What can we do to get relief to those consumers so they don't fall farther behind?
All right. Tuwana, you got the chat box on fire on reparations. Next, we're going to go to Jason, and we'll end up with Doyle.
Thank you. I think anything that really dramatically increases funding for enforcement of fair housing would be a great policy. I mean, to make sure that there's the type of testing and investigations that are going on at a national level on a consistent basis, and that there are adequate resources for that. I would, if it's okay, Antoine, just on the prior question, I really would like to just speak to it for a second. Right now, we've had and have had for quite some time a director of diversity and employee success within EXP. We're well represented, have made hires of employees among people of color, certainly. In fact, at the moment, one of the things that we're doing is building a dashboard where we can really take a snapshot and say, what does the diversity of our candidate pool look like, and what does the makeup of our organization look like, both holistically, but also within the various departments, brokerage operations, growth, human resources, marketing. We've done unconscious bias training for leadership in all of our various teams. Our One EXP folks have initiated what they call table talks, which are diversity-based conversations on a monthly basis. And I can't go without recognizing Fee Gentry, who we appointed. I am the chair of the governance committee for EXP World Holdings, which is the parent publicly traded NASDAQ company of Exp Realty. And in that capacity, over the last many months, I've been working with my fellow members to identify a board candidate for an open seat. And we are very, very pleased to have elected and appointed Fee Gentry to that position. And she tells us, or she told us in the process, and this was rather astonishing, that within the real estate industry, she is the first Black woman to sit on the board of a publicly traded company. So just wanted to share some of that.
Thank you, thank you. So next I want to go to
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
I hate to hold you up, but some folks are texting me and saying they don't understand what the HUD Section 84 is or the down payment, the DREAM Down Payment Act. So just really quickly, for all
Sure,
you
go ahead.
Facebook Live people out there, is that the Native Americans have their own, Native Americans, Hawaiians, and Alaskans have their own housing program called HUD Section 184. So listen, they've got favorable terms and things in this package. It's a law, it's a statute, it's already there. So I'm saying, hey, we need to develop. At first, I said I need a semicolon and 16 characters. I just wanted to add in African Americans. That is no longer, you like that, right, Jason? That is no longer my position. We need our own. We need our own African American home ownership program tailored to what we need. Now, the NAREB has fought for 73 years. And when we fight, everybody wins, Black and white. What I'm saying is it's time for this African American home ownership program to be certified, sanctioned by Congress and HUD. So, and the other one was a down payment because we need money for down payment, right? So this allows you to tax defer to put money in from your paycheck. When that child comes out, there's down payment monies and things like that. Okay, so that's what that is.
Thank you. Great points. Thank you. Great points. Thank you. And people, if you want to get involved with advocacy for those issues, just email us at nareb@nareb.com, and we have we'll send you an email. You can email your members of Congress in your area. Just click one little button. All right. Next, we're going to go to our next question. We have a number of points. I'm going to take one from the.
Hey, Antoine.
Yes.
Can I answer that last question?
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to say briefly, you know, FDIC has done a study for minority banks, and it's shown statistically that minority banks obviously lend to minority individuals in a proportion that's extremely exponentially greater than larger banks. So if you look at African American banks, obviously we're going to lend to African American banks without the discrimination problem. The issue is capacity of our institutions. And so there's two things that Congress can do to help increase the capacity, along with the CDFI Association, the NBA, National Bankers Association, has asked Congress to fund the Treasury CDFI program to the tune of $2 billion. A lot of the programs that they have can add a lot of capacity to our institutions, but it has a difficult time getting funded year to year, and without little or no increases year after year.
Well, they have over $130 billion that wasn't spent for the PPP. Sounds like we ought to get together and do a letter on that immediately.
Well, that's one thing, but I'm just talking about the normal things that CDFI program does and how they distribute the money to smaller and minority institutions. The next thing Congress can do is encourage investments in minority banks, and particularly African American banks, because in order to build capacity, we need capital. And one way they could do that is if they provided either larger banks or larger companies a tax credit for doing that. Larger banks get CRA credit, but they don't really have any incentive any longer just to go after CRA credit. But if you provided them a tax credit, now there's a financial incentive that I think would be much more effective.
Great points. Thank you. Thank you. If I missed anyone, just feel free to jump on in, okay? Next thing is I'm going to take a couple questions from the chat box, then I'll come back for last couple questions, and then we got to do our closing remarks. So there was one comment. I'd like to get some of our lending people to talk about it. It says, what about the situation where Blacks are hired but don't have the ability to make decisions, and they operate under the thumb of a white underwriter that may not be as fair doing mortgages for African Americans. We hear about these stories all the time. Doyle, you've been in the industry a long time. I'd like to get you and Steve to comment on that, and then Tuwana.
Well, I think it goes back to what I said before. You need African Americans at all levels, and underwriting is probably one of the levels that we don't necessarily think about. We may think about senior executive board members and even, as I mentioned, loan officers, but you make an excellent point about there being African Americans either in the underwriting positions or managing the underwriters, so that those problems do not happen. It's an excellent point that someone raised about having underwriters in those positions. You know, deep down, you can't really change the hearts of people. You know, that takes a long time, and so I think the best way is to get more underwriters, and maybe to actually get more African Americans to think about careers in the underwriting path. And I think more African Americans may be more inclined to do what NAREB does than actually get in on the lending side, which is more difficult, but it's not impossible.
Thank you, Steve. You want to give a quick 1 minute on that? And Tuwana?
Yeah, I would just reiterate what we just heard, what Doyle said is absolutely right. I mean, you need diversity through the entire transaction chain, the LO, the underwriter, the processor, the QC. You need to get them in sync, and you need people to be on the same page in terms of outreach and getting these deals done, particularly the harder to do deals. So you need diversity, you need coordination, you need communication.
Tawanna, you have anything you want to chime in on with that?
I would echo those things. I would also say, though, because you're inevitably going to have banks who say, yes, but I don't have that today, so what do I do? So in the meantime, where you don't have that racial diversity, how do you ensure that you run your disparate impact reports and then say, if I know that I'm seeing disparate impacts from the results of the team that I have today, how do I change how that underwriting is being done and who is contributing to some of those decisions, and start to put in some tests, some screens that imply that if we need another lens on this decision making, we bring that in for some non-traditional approaches until we have that racial diversity in place.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to take another question. I'm going to go to Jason and Donnell Williams on this next question. Jason, I know some of your folks are probably hearing about this, the tightening of the credit box since COVID-19. You want to give some thoughts on what's your feeling about the tightening of the credit box? And Mr. Williams, I know that the association has been out there signing letters, ramping up our voice about this tightening of the credit box and this moving of credit requirements. Can you if you talk about that real quickly?
Well, I'll perhaps defer on that. Just where I'm outside of the mortgage, I may not be the best qualified.
All right, we'll have you, Mr. Williams and Steve come by, and we can get also Doyle and Tuwana. And then we're gonna, if you all can give us about 1 quick minute, because I gotta go to Facebook after this.
Okay, I'll jump right in there really quickly. Jason, thank you for the extra time. But look, once COVID-19 hit, they tightened up the credit score. When I say tighten, they didn't restrict it. They raised it up to 660. Some banks went to 720. So with there already being a wealth gap, a revenue income gap, then that hurts us to actually try and qualify. I just had a client that was denied the mortgage because he was 3 points. After they changed it, he was approved. COVID hit, we're still looking, and then he's knocked down because he was 3 points below the average score. I will not mention the bank that has two names. I won't mention. That's what happened.
And Antoine, I was shocked. We sell some of our loans on the secondary market. We keep some, but I was shocked that we had at least one of our investors that purchases loans from us, how quickly they changed their credit requirements. And we used them because they had a number of programs for individuals with spotty or blemished credit. Not only did they raise the credit score 40 points, they went from 640 to 680, but they virtually eliminated a lot of those programs that we use for individuals with spotty and blemished credit. And of course, in our market, when the folks that we target, were African Americans. And basically, by doing that, and since African Americans have less wealth, less income, the tightening of those credit requirements impacts us more than it obviously will our white counterparts. But it happens so quickly.
That was terrible. Steve, you want to chime in? I know that the mortgage bankers,
The only thing I'd say is what
NAREB and some others have been yelling about this.
Yeah, the bill that Congressman Vargas has that's passed the House that we want to get traction on in the Senate deals with this, right? If you eliminate the price hits that lenders are having to face or risk having to face for loans that go into forbearance before delivery, you will remove that risk that they're now putting credit overlays in place to protect against, right? So there's a causality chain there. So you remove that price risk that for them taking a hit for no mistake of their own. Then some of the credit overlays should go away. That's the logic behind the bill.
Okay, Jill, do we have any questions from Facebook?
We do, E.D. Thompson, from Bank Black USA. What do you think can be done to encourage real estate brokers and companies to put their money in Black banks? We see that Netflix is doing what Netflix is doing to move their money. What about people and businesses in this industry doing the same?
Nice, great. Well, hopefully we have submitted a letter to our board to try to get some money from our association to a Black bank. But we're going to go to Jason and some of the folks on the call on the line to see what do you think about that, Jason? You're a big broker. You got 30,000 agents.
We do, and I think if I'm not sure I understand. Entirely, but I'm sorry.
I think the question is in real estate, we got to put escrow money somewhere. We got clients that get mortgages. We got clients that do investment. What can we do in the industry to encourage the utilization of some Black banks in some of our normal course of action? We may have 20 bank accounts. Maybe put one of those accounts at a Black bank.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, thank you for elaborating on it. I think, for us as one company, we do have, probably a smaller number of banking relationships. But we've got banking relationships that cover all of the United States. We've got different relationships in Canada. We've got different relationships in our other international markets too. And I think it's fair to say that it's probably not something that we've been overly conscious of in establishing those relationships, but it's something we ought to consider.
All right, great. All right, Mr. Mitchell, I gotta let you answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. As quiet as it's kept, most Black banks we need more good loans than we do deposits right now. We certainly don't want to turn away deposits, but what makes us money is the loan side. And so that's what we really need. And sometimes we're thought of as lenders of the last resort, and we don't always want to be lenders of the last resort. While we still will help a lot of people that are on the edges, we need clientele that are easy to process through the lending process and make good loans, so that then we can help those that are on the edges. So while we appreciate the movement to place deposits in Black banks, at least what industrial needs, and I know this about some of my counterparts, is we need good loans right now, easy to do loans that we can put on the books, earn money. And as we grow our loan portfolio, we will grow our capital base. And as we grow our capital base, then we're able to take more deposits.
Thank you. We're almost out of time. I want to see if we take one more quick question from Facebook, and then we're gonna do closing comments. Miss Jill, do we have any more questions from Facebook?
No, sir, that was the only one.
All right, so we have, in our closing, I would like for you all to give some closing comments, but part of that closing comments, I'd like for you all to talk about, the association has a national program called House, Then the Car, and it's based on Freddie Mac putting out information that there are 1.7 million. As we talk about increasing Black home ownership, in the last 1 minute, let's talk about what you see that your company can do and your organization can do to increase the rate of Black home ownership for Black millennials. And we're going to give everyone, and then Mr. Williams and Cole come up and close us out. Mr. Mitchell.
Well, somebody was just asking where they can find a list of Black banks, and I was just, as I was typing and got caught off guard because you called on me first. The National Bankers Association.org has a list. FDIC.gov has a list of African-American owned banks around the country. One of the things that I am just a proponent of in terms of us raising our African-American economic ship is we just have to do more business with each other. We've got to be patient because many of our businesses are not as well capitalized as we would like them to be. But I think we have to be insistent on and intentional about doing business with each other. And that's not just people coming to Black banks, but that's people seeking out, you know, Black brokers, Black agents in a number of various disciplines.
All right, we're gonna go to Tuwana real quick. And Tuwana, you want to give us real quick?
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that we can do is to promote and elevate those and encourage and support those who are Black millennials, who are in our organizations, who are successful. We just this weekend celebrated one of our employees who's our youngest millennial who bought his first home, who bought that with a Black realtor. A shout out to Joe World's Realty, who's a partner on our team. And so I think the more that we celebrate, not just talk about the things that are struggling in our communities, but also celebrate those who are taking those positive steps and be good employers. Sometimes those of us in the field know the things that aren't working, but we forget to be good employers ourselves, paying equitable wages, having those good benefits, and encouraging our employees to do the hard work of building toward that goal.
Thank you, thank you. I want to go to Jason and Steve real quick, and then we're going to end with Mr. Williams.
I think, you know, for me and for us, I think, you know, educating consumers, first of all, Black consumers, so that they understand exactly what discrimination looks like in housing, you know, because on its face, you know, you encounter an agent, you encounter a loan officer, and it's not going to be advertised, right? So you got to know what to look for. You got to understand the history a little bit about redlining, and just know what to be on the lookout for. The other thing is we want to get, you know, we want to attract the best Black agents that are in the industry today. And it's why we build a business model that, you know, focuses on things like healthcare for agents. We've got a really robust healthcare program for our agents, generational wealth through revenue sharing, equity ownership through stock awards tied to production and helping the company grow. And then I would just say that overall, you know, we just need greater representation throughout the entire ecosystem within the industry. That's at the state and local boards as well. And I think there needs to be greater and more significant leadership representation by people of color within those organizations, because it's going to take a concerted effort. And so just a couple of things there, but thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all the panelists. I'm going to turn it over to our 31st national president, who's been really championing this effort to increase Black millennial home ownership, for closing comments on that question and closing us out for this event. Thank you. You all have been remarkable.
Yes, thank you all so very much. All of my panelists and participants, Mr. Mitchell, Doyle Mitchell, Bishop Worsham, Jason Gesing, Stephen O'Connor, and Tuwana Black. I want to thank you all for participating. I also like to thank some folks on my team that helped out. Of course, the very capable Mr. Antoine Thompson, my chairwoman of the board, Michelle Calloway, my vice chair, Harold Carter, my second vice president, Courtney Johnson Rose, my chief of staff, Bill Collins, RVPs, my regional vice presidents, Maya Ronnie Smith, Sharita McCrae, Cheryl Merrick, Jerry Isham, and Taro Walls. Of course, I can't leave out my staff who helps me put this on, Mr. Amon, Jill, Diane, and Ruby. The National Association of Real Estate Brokers, and Tuwana, when you said, I thought they prepped you, but when you said Black Realtors, it just, your guy out there in Minneapolis has got to join our group because we are the Realtists. We are the Realtist organization. If I unmute everybody on this phone and I said Realtist, they would all yell back, Nation, because we are Realtist Nation, and I believe it in my heart. We are moving forward with this housethenthecar.com. There are 1.7 million Black millennials out there that do not own a home but make over $100,000 a year. Housethenthecar.com gives them the online fillable budget, a HUD-approved purchase counseling class, a FICO estimator, mortgage down payment assistance location. So we're moving forward with that. Freddie Mac came out with a study and said that the average age of an African American is 48 years old. So therefore, we need to have a different conversation. The conversation is now about purchasing, yes, but then we need to find out how to transfer that wealth. We transfer that wealth, wills, trusts, probates, the bad words we never want to talk about. Insurances. That is all going to be there for our ambassadors as we connect with our civic engagement partners. It's going to be on Rosie Real Estate Opportunities for Seasoned Individuals, rosie.pro. That will be up next week. You're going to be taking classes so that you're an ambassador. So when I say, Antonio, go over there, I know that you know what you're talking about. When I say, Antoinette, I know what you're talking about. Okay, we're moving forward next week. They said to give you guys a break with our Realtist Investment Group. So early next week, we will have that. So I'm very excited about what we're moving forward, and civic engagement. No one has the reach that we have. So I'm very, very pleased. I'm very pleased about the future. I thank you all for your time. I believe we can move Black home ownership forward because no one else was talking about Black home ownership until we started talking about 2 million and 5. So all these other groups, these pop-up groups and what have you, Cheryl, that were there, they were not talking about. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a conversation until the realtors got behind it. Now, for homework. There is a movie, and everybody have Amazon Prime. There is a movie out there called Shelley versus Kramer. It's a documentary on Amazon Prime. Shelley versus Kramer. Is anybody here on the phone from St. Louis? Is anybody on Facebook from St. Louis? Look at the documentary. It's 12 minutes long, Mr. Mitchell. Check it out. And then I want you to tell me, the next trivia, tell me what happened to signify the National Association of Real Estate Brokers in 1948 in that documentary. We have a long, rich history, Tuwana, and we're very proud of it. We're very proud. So I thank you all. Hold on tight and enjoy the ride. We're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.